Go ahead and test it. I think you do.
Testing.
It's never looked like that before.
Oh, Donna, do you have one?
I do,
Okay.
I have one. And then I thought you'd come down, and so I.
Thank you.
And then I thought, uh-oh, you went back up, and,
Thanks, that's okay.
yeah, okay.
Test, test.
Drive, moonlight, or gaslighters or something. Okay. Okay, whoops. Okay, I'm not quite. Yeah, that's why he's not with us tonight. Just in general. Okay. It is that bewitching hour. Welcome, everyone, to our June board meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 3.03, it's our superintendent or associate superintendent this evening. Comments? So, Rodney, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So first and foremost, the last time I pretended to be a superintendent, we waved at the camera to Jason because you know he's watching. So I would love to do that my second time around. If we just wave at that camera back there and just wave at him. Jason is recovering from a medical procedure, so we hope he gets a lot of rest and come back as our fearless leader. I would also like to send a special shout out to Julie McClard, as this is her last board meeting. Let's give her a round of applause. Nice little golf clap for you.
Oh.
It's a golf clap, yes, yes. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication, and you will be missed. Also want to highlight our new data assessment and learning coordinator, Megan Bowersock. She's not here, but let's give her a round of applause. She will be joining us in that role for the 24-25 school year. In her first year, she served at Hardin as their instructional coach, and we're excited for her to join CNI. We know she's going to do phenomenal. This is pretty cool. So there's a student at St. Charles High by the name of Madeline Bunch. She's graduated, but she had perfect attendance all 4 years of high school. So let's give that a nice little round of applause. It's pretty impressive, and the last time she missed school was after third grade. So pretty impressive, pretty dedicated, to say the least, but to have perfect attendance all 4 years is certainly an accomplishment. Let's give her another round of applause. Hopefully Maddie's watching.
Practically.
Congratulations, Madeline.
Practically all 12 except for a day.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct, correct.
That's amazing.
Certainly happy for our graduations that took place on June 1st for St. Charles High and St. Charles West, and we wish our graduates the best of luck. In spring sports, our St. Charles High boys track team, one of their relay teams, won the state championship. So let's golf clap them. A lot of clapping, a lot of celebrations. And also, I would be remiss, our St. Charles West girls soccer team had the opportunity to play in the state quarterfinals of the state tournament, and that's certainly an accomplishment as well. Last but not least, enjoy the summer, stop, smell the roses. You know, I think for us in central office, we feel that, you know, it doesn't feel like summer. It just keeps going and going and going. But certainly this is the best time to stop, smell the roses, just take a breath. I want to thank our staff, our students, our families, and certainly our Board of Education for making the 23-24 school year a successful one, and we are currently, every day, prepping for the 24-25 school year and look forward to moving together.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I can, okay, thank you, Teresa.
gotta give you that.
Thank you so much.
you. Item 3.04 is board communications, and we have none. Item 3.05, this is our audience comment time, and Heidi, if you'll read our little disclaimer.
All regular and special meetings of the board shall be open to the public. Since the board desires to be a good listener and be responsive to the community, persons desiring to address the board may do so during the time so allotted on the agenda and according to established procedures. During the audience portion of each board meeting, patrons are invited by the president to speak for or against any proposal on the tentative agenda or on any other school concern. The individual is asked to identify him or herself, limit comments to a few minutes, and avoid discussing personalities. The president reserves the right to limit the number of presentations and/or length of comments. At the discretion of the president, patrons may be recognized at other times during the board meeting. The board is very interested in audience comments. According to board policy, members cannot respond during the actual meeting. The board will listen to audience comments. If necessary, additional follow-up will occur through district administrators.
Thank you. We have one audience comment. Teresa? Yeah, you have to just push the button.
Thank you, David. Okay. All right. Hello, my name is Teresa Linsnick. I'm mom of a St. Charles High grad and substitute para in the district. Happy Father's Day, dads. Fathers sacrifice a lot for their children. I'm concerned about St. Charles children. 30 years ago, there were only 2 genders. Now, there's how many? What happened? June Queer Pride Month got popular and media told us there are numerous genders. What has it gotten us? Confused kids, discontentment with one's biology, parental rights canceled, discord in relationships, confusion in sports, and even confusion in bathrooms. Did you know that the National Institute of Health says that a staggering 40% of transgenders have attempted suicide, with suicidality highest among the transgender youth? That's over 25 times the rate of suicide attempts among the general population. Cause? Detransitioners say the cause is psychological trauma, that counseling instead of transitioning is the answer. Did you know that transgenders are 3 to 6 times as likely to be autistic? And there's a huge spike in adolescent females wanting to transition. Is this social contagion? I have a friend who was ostracized by her granddaughter because this granny would not give into her granddaughter's demands of social transitioning. Her granddaughter is on the autism spectrum and got influenced at school to socially transition. Kids need their grannies. A former principal told me he would inform parents when their child declared at school that they were socially transitioning. I want to commend him for this. We need to include parents in critical decisions like this so that they can help their children. Question: did you know that June being labeled Queer Pride Month actually has ancient roots? Jonathan Cahn, a New York best-selling author, wrote a book about it called The Return of the Gods. He will be at Grace Church St. Louis June 22nd and 23rd to talk about the ancient roots of June Queer Month and why society is pushing it. Everyone is welcome. Sex change is physically impossible, psychologically unhelpful, and philosophically misguided. Thank you.
That's our only comment for this evening. Item 3.06, do I have a motion to amend or adopt the agenda?
I move we amend the agenda to take item 4.07 out of the consent agenda for discussion.
We have a motion to amend the agenda by removing item 4.07 for discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I motion we approve the amended agenda.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries. Number 4.01 is our consent agenda. For efficiency, the school board utilizes a consent agenda. Items placed on the consent agenda are routine in nature or are among the many decisions that the board has already determined are in the domain of the administration. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? As amended? or
As
just-
amended?
Well, I've thought about that, but since we already amended the agenda by taking it out, but let me rephrase that. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended? Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is approved. Item 5.01 then is our discussion of the one we removed of bids and contracts. Ellen?
Okay, thank you. The SRO services agreement, I have a question about that. It seems to me that the contract as written does not provide enough detail. It seems to me that we are promising to pay a huge sum and provide them with, provide the SROs with offices and office equipment, and we're not getting a commitment. My question is, do the SROs have written job expectations? It says to protect, but I think the written expectations should be laid out clearly. Do we have the right to evaluate the performance of the SROs? Now, I'm not knocking any of the current SROs. But I would like to see some expectations documented and an evaluation. If we have such,
I would say that the expectations are, one, outlined from the St. Charles Police Department, but then two, what they can and can't do and how they interact with our schools would be in the MOU. The other piece of that is that we don't evaluate them, but certainly can provide feedback to their superiors if need be.
okay, and do they undergo professional development that is specific to SROs?
I would say that, I mean, we certainly.
I can tell you that.
Please.
Yeah, I can tell you that the SROs do undergo a training of professional development at least once prior to them entering as an SRO. I can't tell you if the department sends them multiple times, but I do know there's an SRO training that's provided to them in the summer.
Don't they also participate in some of our professional development? Like when we did, or they help lead? When
They
we-
help lead
They
it,
help lead some
the
of
4E
those
training.
safe defend programs and things.
Does anybody agree with me that the expectations should be clearly defined?
Well,
You know,
Ellen,
yeah.
it's not that I agree or disagree, well, maybe I disagree respectfully. It's that I look at this as, these are contracts with our SRO officers who are police officers, who are our buildings, if I'm going to say this correctly, are their beat, or their assignment. And so they are still And as Rodney said, we provide input, we provide maybe feedback, and there's a good relationship between the police department and the school district, and having the SROs here as functioning police officers first and foremost, and then building a relationship as police officers and the student body. The two-way street that and it's been a long time, but I experienced a long time ago, was that our relationship not only benefits the school in protection and having police officers in our building, but it benefits the community and our police officers, because once they have this good relationship, our students are comfortable talking to them and heading, with little, not rumors, but when they are aware of maybe something that might be coming up. I know that's come up several times. So I don't know that it's as a school board, should be something that we have some kind of additional requirements in this contract.
Well, I wonder if we were to see the job description from the city of St. Charles, because they're employed by I know we're reimbursing, but there may be clear duties in that job description, but I don't know that we need to have separate ones than what the city of St. Charles
We don't.
would have.
And, the MOU that we have with them is the same MOU that we've been using for years. There's nothing different than the board has approved before. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with commenting on it. I'm just saying nothing's changed with it. It's a really good relationship that we have, and obviously, as you know, we have Wendy that goes back and forth, but starting at Hardin all the way through our high schools, the level of safety and the sort of reassurance that comes along with some of the things our high school deals with shows that they are valuable across the board.
Well, I'd like to see more data. I know when I met with the members of the CO team about, they mentioned that the Hardin has seen a 37% decrease in referrals, and I thought that was positive, but I would like to have more data on their effectiveness before I would be comfortable with a yes vote for that large of a sum of money. I'm just expressing my, I'm searching for a word, but.
Opinion, view?
Yeah, well, my,
Your due diligence?
yeah, I guess so, yeah, okay. And there is another contract, the Secretary of State Local Records Preservation Grant Agreement. What is that all about? Okay, yeah. Explain to me what records we will be preserving. Oh.
Ellen, did you call ahead to maybe let them know you wanted to take this off the agenda so she could be prepared?
Hey, Donna, can I mention something while she's warming
Yeah.
up? That select rehab one is the one that's supposed to be going in July,
Okay.
so I don't know if we should pull it out and then,
Okay, we are looking at all of the items under this umbrella of contracts and bids and contracts. So, first of all, we are aware that the contract, the select rehabilitation, is going to come up again in July.
it should be approved
Yeah.
in July.
So do I have a motion to remove this item from consideration on our bids and contracts?
I move to remove the select rehabilitation contract from item 5.01.
All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thanks for bringing it. Okay, now we clean that up.
Yeah.
And, well, she's looking at the SSO. What about, oh,
There we go. Okay, I think I'm on. I myself filled out that grant for the district. It was quite a process. I had to go through the Secretary of State, and I did it because I have a room full of archived records downstairs back to the 1800s that need to be preserved in a manner that will keep them for a long time because they're starting to deteriorate. They're not being preserved currently the way they should be. So this grant will help provide money for me to move forward and do that. Great job. Yes.
And I will echo what Kelly just said there. There are two items of specific importance to me as a history lover that have Harry Truman's signature on them. And so we have them sitting down there, and I have had them sitting down there since 1940. I can't remember exactly the year. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is beautiful.
that's almost 80 years.
And I don't know if anyone else would feel that way, but I certainly do. So thank you, Kelly.
Well, we do need to look at conserving, and you just don't think about them. I'm glad you did that grant. So we're okay with okay, SOS is okay. Now,
Do we need to vote on the SRO?
if we are okay with the rest of the bids and contracts discussion? We are going,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so there are, without any further discussions of any of the other contracts, then the remaining 5, do I have a motion to approve? And I'm not going to list them all, but the remaining 5 that we have remaining. Do I have a motion to approve those bids and contracts?
I move to approve the bids and contracts as modified.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Ellen, though, that was a good discussion. That's what we need to do. We're ready for item 6.01. These are policy changes for the second reading. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve policies AC, ACG, GDBDA, GDJ, IGBA, IGBCA, IGBE, IGBG, JCB, JFCF, JG-R2, and KG-R1. And you don't even know if I read them all correctly anymore. But I did.
I move to approve the policies as stated by Donna as presented.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 7.01, we have some curriculum guideline adoptions for this evening.
Yes, good evening, everybody. David, if you could click on the 712 Social Studies Curriculum and K6 Addendum. Yep, that one. So this is our final round of curriculum adoptions for next school year. Last month, we presented several, and these are our final 2 that are finished and for your approval. We have 7 through 12 Social Studies, which was a 2-year process, and then we have our addendum to elementary K through 6 ELA due to some of the state literacy laws that have changed. So without further ado, I'm actually going to turn this over to Dr. Jessica Rico, who is our ELA and Social Studies Coordinator, who will kind of talk to us about the work that our staff did this school year. There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for being here and for listening to this final adoption of this year. I will tell you, when Dr. Draper just said this was a 2-year process, it has been a long process. It's been a very, very good process, but it was necessary. And I want to thank the board very much for allowing us the flexibility to make our core areas a 2-year process because it's very necessary for the teachers to go through and dig through the standards and to be able to provide the correct professional development so that the teachers can go forward with the instruction. Quite a few changes were made regarding the social studies content and skill standards from the previous state standard adoption. This was truly a change because of NCSS, which is the National Council of Social Studies. And what the focus is now is on inquiry skill with all content, because we can't cover all social studies or all of the history since the beginning of time. It's not possible. So what we're trying to do is educate our students to be able to look at any particular event and to be able to apply a skill lens, very similar to what is done in science as well. So what you will start to see when you go visit these classrooms are students interacting not only with historical events, but also being able to apply that information to what is happening in their current world. The hope then is that these students, once they graduate, are able to take those same skills and to apply them to their community and to apply it to the global environment as well. So we're very, very excited about that particular adoption. So I do hope you go and visit those classrooms next year because it will be a big change. So you can, I'm sorry, if you can scroll, thank you so much. And these were all of our writers. And this was a very, very large group, but they worked diligently to complete this right. And it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and love right there. If you can go ahead and scroll up as well, thank you. As we've already adopted the resources. So again, thank you very much to the board for assisting us with those. So 7th and 8th grade will go with McGraw-Hill and with the online and physical resources. And 9th through 12th, SAVIS will be the primary core resource. And then for the AP courses and college composition, some of the electives, we will have the other vendors as well. And we are going to have onboarding professional development at the beginning of the year and throughout. Okay, thank you. Not that I love one more than the other, but I think you're going to see my facial expression on this one light up a little bit more because I can't tell you how absolutely, I'm getting chills from this right now. I'm so excited for our kids. I'm so excited for our kids, and I'm excited for our teachers. The state has embraced the science of reading, which is fantastic because what that means for our students is they're going to be able to phonetically look at language and then also to be able to take that the phonemic awareness into the comprehension piece as well. So that 2 layers of what they call the Scarborough's rope. So we're going to look at not only reading, but comprehension and overall literacy from 2 very scientific perspectives. So we already have foundations, which is the basis of our phonemic awareness for our students. And now we are adopting wit and wisdom. Thank you very much for that approval last month. Then we wrote the curriculum based upon the standards. The standards basically are an echo of looking at the phonemic awareness, but now taking that and what does that look like when we're looking at theme, we're looking at character. And we'll be able to see that not only in kindergarten, but all the way through 6th grade, and then we're going to echo that when we do the right for 7 through 12. So we did replace units of study with wit and wisdom because it is based on the science of reading. And the other part that I'm very excited about, can you scroll up a little bit too? Oh, and this is really tiny, I apologize, but if you want to take a look at it closer, I think you can probably zoom on your laptop. We've created scales. Of course, we've had scales for a while now, but what we did is our team, our CIA team, went and did some professional development, and we were speaking with other districts, we're speaking with the state, and what were best practices when we talk to our parents, when we talk to our students about what this learning looks like with our scales. So as you'll see, they pretty much look characteristically like a regular scale, but when you look at the language, when we go down to success criteria, a 4, which is obviously something is an advanced student, they've gone beyond the basic 3. So to achieve a 4, the student needs to display application beyond what the standards is asking. So we then use the wording on target for a level 3 because the student has shown on-target proficiency. The state still calls this level proficient, but when we're talking with our parents and our students, that is more of a conversation of growth when we use the word on, your words on target. Then a level 2 is in progress, which to the state is called basic. But again, those conversations with parents and students will be more amenable when we use the words in progress. And then a level 1 is getting started. So it's basically an introductory level. That's where the student is at that moment. So again, that growth wording. And then an LND is level not determined. This can mean a multitude of things. It can be that the teacher just has not gotten to that particular standard with the students quite yet, or that particular student, we haven't been able to assess them on that standard at that moment. So that allows for conversation with our parents and with the students in wording that everybody can have a good conversation around. The other piece that you'll notice is in the success criteria. Because our elementary teachers have to be masters of all content areas, this allows them to look at these specific identifiers that are very clearly helping them to understand, okay, does my student understand at a level 4, 3, 2, or 1, this particular standard? And you'll notice at the top where it says 1R2AB, that is a standard. And the wording there, we have the skills, the things that they're going to do. So for instance, in this one it says develop and apply. The what would be the skills and the strategies to comprehend, analyze, and evaluate fiction, poetry, and drama. So on that 3, in those little check boxes, the teacher will be able to say, yep, the student can identify the main topic of the fiction text, the student can tell only the important details in order, and tells what the author wanted the reader to learn from the story. And they can check each one of those off very clearly. And we go ahead and kind of delineate that down when we get to a 2 and then a 1. So we're very, very excited about this change, and we will be using that as we move forward with our other curriculum rights as well for the elementary level. Again, this is an addendum, so we are proposing the adoption of this for the next 3 years until we go into the formal rewrite for K through 12 ELA. But again, because the state did state that we have to do the science of reading-based materials, we needed to construct a curriculum that met those same needs along with the resource. One more thing I'd like to point out. In that right-hand column where it says, how can I assess this standard? That particular column is separate from the actual standards. These standards and success criteria match the particular standard. So what we can do, let's say that the resource in 3 years or whatever isn't exactly meeting our students' needs. All we need to do then is take that right column out and replace it with any other resource that we find acceptable for our students. The idea is we are truly basing these scales on the standards, using the resource as just that, the resource, the vehicle to help the student get to success with that standard. That is where we are, and that's my presentation for you. If you have any questions, please let me know. I would love to field them.
You're so excited, and
I can't.
Yeah.
I have so much excitement. We just had a professional development this last week. Yesterday, in this room, with the administrators, the K through 6 administrators were here, the principals. We had assistant principals here. We had all the instructional coaches here, and it was called Lead Wit and Wisdom. So Wit and Wisdom, the resource, came in and worked with our administrators, our instructional coaches, on how we're going to lead this implementation next year. And we have professional development in August for all of our teachers to be able to truly understand the resource, how they're going to use every single component, and then we're going to continue that in September. We're going to continue that with walkthroughs. And when we have new teachers coming in, we're going to present new onboarding for the years following as well. So we're incredibly excited about this. I can't wait for our students to learn from this. I can't wait for you to come see it. So
Well, I like your presentation and my understanding now of how this addendum update has been written more toward the standards.
Yes.
And then you can easily switch the resources or the materials that we might have, because, you know, we've lived through those pages of ridiculous kinds of stuff. You can't even understand it all. And this is so much clearer, and it makes more sense for parents to understand when you're talking educational ease to them.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, hats off to Dr. Draper and our team for the work that was put into this. We had a lot of work and time into this.
So, and I was actually going to say that. So, thank you to Jessica for leading this out, because this year probably stretched Jessica more than she's ever been stretched before,
but it
with
was
having social studies, with having world language, and then having elementary ELA, which was not a part of the plan originally. So she had 3 big rewrites this year, and she led the team well. This building was rocking all year long with people in and out of this building, writing curriculum in this room, in the archive room, upstairs in curriculum lab. So thank you, Jessica, and
Thank
to
you
the
very
writing
much.
teams for all of their hard work this year with this work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly. Thanks a lot. So, yep. Any questions?
Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the curriculum guide adoptions for 24, 25? Do I second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, Jessica.
Thank you
That's
so
been-
much. Thank you.
that's
And
approved.
please come see them. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, you know what? I'm going to make a note.
Yeah, we can
and-
set up some learning walks for the
Absolutely.
board. Yeah, we do them all the time as a team, so we can set some up with you.
Yes, because just one more
Yep.
thing. There's something called a Socratic seminar that we do in the secondary level all the time, and it's beautiful. You get to, you know what it is, right? It's, for those of you who don't, it's when students are circled around and they're asking questions of each other about the material, and the conversations are beautiful. We're gonna have those at the kindergarten level through 6th grade. That is going to be remarkable. And I know that we're going to see these beautiful brains show us exactly what they're made of. I'm so excited. Absolutely, absolutely. Again, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jessica. Item 8.01, these are policy changes. This is our first reading. Do you have any questions over any of them? Actually, I think JHD is simply updating some terminology for counselors, but the other two are just kind of removing one because it's in a different policy and kind of taking one little piece out of policy KL because it's covered in another policy, but any questions about them?
Yeah, a quick question. I see everything on that first one, JDA or JHD.
Yeah.
Everything's moving to the social emotional. Can somebody explain like what exactly that means? Because you hear tons of different things on social emotional. So what does that exactly mean when it talks, you know, it's moving from counseling to, or guidance to emotions, or personal social to social emotional? I've heard some negative
Personally-
connotation and some positives.
Personally, I just think it's a change in the policy. We've been talking social emotional
I know it seems like
probably
forever, but
20 years. Instead of just the social aspect of kids interacting with each other and adults and students, we've always, had the emotional piece in there with their feelings and reactions. And so I don't think that anything's necessarily changed other than the policy, because policies tend to be pretty old and then they update with kind of the latest terminology.
Right.
I don't know that anything's really changed any differently. In our curriculum, I think we did last year, right? I mean, it's in 7 years before that, and it's always included social emotional, so I don't really know there's much difference. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know that, we get the policy changes from MSBA to implement, and so it's probably the last time they've, looked at it and updated it.
It looks like this policy here was originally adopted in 1995, and as we know, I mean, that's what it says here, and then it was revised in 2018, but even from 2018 to 2024, we're just updating terminology to meet creating a term, or there's a term that we use now that better describes what we're educating, what we're teaching, et cetera. So social emotional certainly wasn't around in 1995, that's for sure. But obviously It's more prevalent now than it was in 2018, but we have always tackled kids' mental health, zones of regulation, things like that. So to me, this is just updating the language as we use it as educators today.
As a retired guidance counselor, I can tell you there's been a long time kind of, I don't want to say resentment about the word guidance, because the reality is that we're dealing with kids' social, emotional issues every day in order to give them guidance. They can't take the guidance if they're not in the right place. So that's something that's gone on. I think I retired before the last policy. So,
Really, we
but
used to-
we've always done that.
And even
It's
if we didn't
always
use
been
the
there.
social emotional combination, then it was always, we deal with the social issues and their emotion, and we have the and, but it is an all-encompassing, that kind of, not just with others, but internally with emotions, so.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and the state uses social emotional learning is a big, keyword now. And, social emotional behavioral tends to be pieced together. So it just kind of is, like you said, it's just kind of the most updated terminology. Huh? It does,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like peanut butter and jelly. Is that okay, Brian? Okay. Well, this is first reading, so we'll vote on that in July. Item 8.02 is a budget adoption. And Jeremy?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening to everyone. The first part of the budget book is a bunch of the introduction of the material for CSEP, but also of you all and of the administrative team. So to save ourselves a little bit of time, unless you want to stand up and talk about each one of yourselves, we'll skip all the way to slide, let's see here, slide 11, David, if we could do that for me, please. Slide 11 is just going to be, it's either slide 11 or page 9. I remember this from last year when the slides and the pages didn't line up, and I was so confused. So if you go to slide 11, David. That just gives a budget overview. Basically, how do we get from point A to point B? And a lot of it's just based off of trend history, projections going into next year. What you're going to find in this particular budget is I was extremely conservative on the revenue side due to a lot of financial uncertainty, not only due to federal fundings, but state funding, and now, unfortunately, local funding that won't impact us this year, but will impact us in future years. So that's really some of that within the overview. You'll see on slide 12, we have a calendar of how some of the budget is created. And that budget is obviously, we're constantly looking at departments. We're trying to get better at looking at departments and the department budgets, but also projecting future needs within the departments. So some of that is provided to you there as far as the calendar of events. A lot of that's primarily dealt with directors, CO team members, and our business office officials, specifically Director of Business and Accounting and the Business Coordinator. Slides 13 and 14, you're going to look at district enrollment. And I was at a meeting, or actually it was a MOASBO conference, Missouri Association of School Business Officials, for several days in March. And I think we were all standing for whatever reason at some point in time, and they asked, hey, would anyone that's not had a decline in enrollment sit down? And there was only one person that sat down. One district represented that did not have a decline in enrollment since the pandemic. So what we have been saying for the last couple of years at least, and what we will continue to say this year, is we see a loss of the pandemic due to the pandemic of several hundred students. So rather than having, without pre-K enrollment, rather than having 4,700 to 4,800 kids, we typically are going to land in the 4,500 range. I don't see that changing drastically or dramatically. I don't think that we have any information that would suggest that. At this point in time, we don't have any census studies that would suggest that either, and we certainly don't have any development that has been happening in our district that are bringing in a ton of an influx of students. We're just not that district right now that we might see out west, or even just slightly north of us. So, and that's certainly not an indicator of the outlook for the city or the school district, but as you all know, we are landlocked. So, and the new developments are very, very pricey. And the homes in this area are very, very pricey. So it's very difficult to attract, in my opinion, just based off of some of the real estate values that have gone up pretty significantly just in the last 2 years. So that's what we're seeing on the enrollment side of things. As you know, that's a projection piece, but also that's something that we will base some of our building off of, some of our facilities, some of our bond issue funding off of, if in fact we were to see a significant or project a significant increase in students. So take us to slide 16. We just do personnel breakdowns on slide 16 there, David. And just where the percentage of our staff sits. And we have that split up between certified and classified staff members. It's very similar to what we've had in all the previous years that this budget book has been provided. No significant changes there. Nothing that I would bring up that would say that there's a concern or an area that we would need to look at based off percentages alone. Any questions so far? I'd hate for us to get to the very end and then ask that. Okay. Slide 17 is just our averages versus the state as far as pay, but also in advanced degrees. As you can see, we're ahead of the state in all three of those areas. I won't say that's good or bad with the exception of advanced degrees, but you guys can have your own judgment and opinion on that, but certainly not anything to be ashamed of, I wouldn't think. Slide 18 is the financial summary. This is the one where we just try to break down everything beyond this page. And what you initially see here on paper could create some alarm, but but I want to explain the best I can and certainly answer any questions to the best of my abilities. So that very first that you see there is what we talk about all the time. What is not a part of our fund balance, and then what is not a part of the unrestricted fund balance. So this, I don't want you to confuse this. That general fund, that is the unrestricted. That capital fund is a restricted fund. That has nothing to do with the numbers that you see in the three areas below: all funds, operating funds, and the operating funds excluding bond issue. So if we look at the all funds, that's everything in totality. Our revenue will always, as long as we're in a bond issue, our revenue should, unless we're just sitting on a pot of money, should always be below that expenditure. Our projection next year, conservative projection next year on bond expenditures is $10 million, with primary expenditures being at Hardin as we start and finish that project, but that will go into July of next year, so we won't expend it fully. The completion of Lincoln and the completion of Knoll, which will happen in the middle to late July. So if you were to just look at that alone, you could quickly see that 114.7, if we take 10 million off of that, that's going to be 104 million. And if we were just to keep our revenues the same. But we like to go a step further and say, okay, now just our operating fund. So we're going to take, not worry about that construction fund. We're going to leave that in there right now, which is, we call it the bond issue. We're going to leave that in, and we're just going to take off that debt service money that gets brought in off of that 75 cents for the tax rate. So that 75 cents on our tax rate will give us next year about 11,500,000. And that money is used to pay off what we owe for our bond. So that takes that revenue down. What is our true operating revenue? 93,615,000. But we still have, and that expenditure doesn't decrease that much because we are generating more bond revenue on that 75 cents than what we will exhaust for the for the payment, the bond payment. People ask, well, why is that? Well, our assessed valuation has risen quite a bit in the past 4 years. since that bond was brought up in 2021. When that increase in debt assessed valuation occurs, we start holding onto that money in that account, and that will allow us at times, if we think it's financially feasible and in the best interest of the district, to maybe come to the board and say, we want to extend this for a year by using some of these excess funds and continue on the 2021 bond for one more year before that debt service amount would automatically decrease. The only way that would automatically decrease is if that fund balance got so significant or we paid it off so well, which we're doing, that we would have to drop it down to just cover that principal and interest payment that's due every year. So, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Sorry if I'm speaking way too much on this. Operating funds excluding the bond issue then, that's where we take off that construction money of $10 million, which we call it the bond issue. We always call it bond issue in all of our board reports, so I don't want to confuse you. I keep saying construction. That's just how I think about it in my mind. But we call it the bond issue. So that leaves us a negative balance of $1.3 million as we spend next year. Now, there's a couple of things I want to address with you here. This is a preliminary budget. So for me, what I would most like to propose to you in a preliminary budget, before we even set the tax rate, before the state has given us good figures as to what they're actually going to provide, what the state adequacy target is truly going to be, because if you are familiar with Senate Bill 727, which wasn't passed until late May, here we are in June trying to create a budget, they have an allocated dollar for all of the state. If if every school district comes back in their September membership numbers and says, here's our September enrollment, and the state says they can't fund it, then they have to get approval before they start releasing funds. So the state is sitting on $4 billion right now in funds. In their fund balance, they like to have $500,000. So where do they get it? They have it all from the federal money still. It's not been spent. So that federal money train, for lack of better words, is going to ride in the state through 2025, and that's where we will see that fiscal cliff finally dropping off. So what I'm trying to do here is present a revenue that is shows no growth for us next year while showing real numbers and expenditures. And I think that's our best approach. And then we make adjustments after that tax rate hearing in October or in September to bring adjustments to you in October, November, either October, November, but then again in March and April to give us a better picture. So this is just preliminary. Preliminary right now is showing that negative 1.3. We hope that is the worst case scenario. In my opinion, it is the worst case scenario. And I can tell you, like, we can get into it, but that's really what the rest of this information is going to show us. So I'll tell you, in all of this rest of this information, the good, where can we get more revenue based upon what I show? One, every state, local, county, federal revenue is below what we received this year, every one of them. Also, our ESSER is lower than we'll probably actually pull in, but I wanted to deflate that a little bit because I don't want to go right up to that margin, especially in a preliminary budget. Our operating funds that we started investing in January are strong. And based on the Fed decision to keep the interest rates where they are, with maybe just one change occurring at the end of this year, I expect that to still be this case going into next year. So I only put that at $350,000 in revenue for next year, and we've already exceeded that this year. So that's a good thing. We did do some negotiations with our groups, although we did give what I think are market-driven raises and that were appropriate. We did discuss the option or the opportunity to reduce overtime and discuss the option of making sure we're paying our employees specifically for the time that we have in their hourly contracts. We will wait and see if that has an impact type of thing. I believe it will, but I cannot tell you to what effect that will at this point in time until we get further into next school year. There was an increase in state funds. Instead of being at $6,300 $6,300 and some odd dollars, can't remember the exact total. It's going to go up to like $6,700. That's that total that I can't tell you is for sure yet because the state won't tell us it's for sure yet. That's a substantial raise in revenue from the state, and we haven't seen that in 20 years. But it's very carefully written because there's no guarantee that they will be able to provide it. So we think the state, they're going to this year, that's my belief. But when I say that fiscal cliff turns up in 2025, that could be very difficult and delicate for us to maintain that expectation from the state. So we do have that. I think that's going to increase. Prop C is going to be an increase as well. That is our sales tax. All of our sales tax, that's local money. But it goes back to the state. And then the state gives it back to us. So they still have control. And we know why they want control of that. So that's going to go up as well, and that should be a decent uptick in revenue for us. And I would be talking between those two things, equaling $1 million plus on that. So I say we're $1.3 million. We could already cover that, in my opinion, quite easily just through the state increases and our operating increases. The other piece I think is really good for us. The first 5 months of our health insurance is trending very well. And since I've been in this seat, that's the first time I've been able to say that with any certainty, which makes me very joyous because it means our employees are much healthier and we don't have nearly the amount of significant concerns with life and death situations as we've been seeing, knock on wood, because we know that can change very quickly. But the secondary response for us is that we know our finances are a bit easier to predict and to project if that stays within a normal range. Remember, we are operating 18% over expert expectations through 3 different clients offerings. That'd be CBiz, our stop loss Sun Life, and our prescription provider, which is Optum. So we met with them. We've been meeting with them quite a bit just to make sure that information is accurate because it just seemed too good to be true, to be honest with you, because that's been my experience for 24 months has been just pain and misery with health insurance. So, and we're feeling pretty good about it right now. So that's also a good sign for us. The disruption that we would be talking about through here, the employee job market is tough. We discuss it all the time. It is tough, and we don't know when that may turn, but we know right now, based on inflation and just based on some of the job growth that has occurred in other markets, that it's tough right now for a lot of. We talked about SROs earlier. We've got 3 of them, but I know they're always hurting for police officers here in St. Charles City, and we have actually we have 5 of them with the my gosh, I can't think of it. It's not DARES. What is it now? The SMART or START program? I forgot. Anyhow, the 2 other officers that are in their elementaries. But I know their market is tight too. It's not just hitting education, which is the trap we fall into sometimes, is thinking it's just education. It's hitting a lot of public service industries. It's hitting a lot of us. So we're no different. Inflation has hurt significantly for us, and that was a hard one to get our grasp on with purchase services especially. We just see those numbers rising, and there's no stopping that unless the federal government can do something, and certainly they're attempting. Property insurance, here's a big one for us. Just found out about, 3 weeks ago, we will expect a 20% increase in our property insurance liability. So that's going to push us close to that $1 million mark for the first time, and that's probably about $350,000 more than what we've ever paid. And right now, Missouri is just getting hammered with storms and unexpected times. And they've shown us figures that saying, look what's happened in December, just the last three years compared to 20 years prior. So that's another area of concern for us. We just had one, 3 weeks ago with major hail. And this building, St. Charles High, and a few others were impacted by that, and we are having to use our insurance for that. And it will not be cheap for our insurance provider. There's no doubt about it. But That's just us, you know, it's getting hit quite a bit. We've had major water issues as well in our district. So those elements cause that increase, and that's not just an increase on us, that's on the entire insurance consortium throughout the region. All the school districts are going to be facing that. Reliance on hourly wages to pay for our certified staff to be substitutes is not something that we had ever experienced before the pandemic. To this degree, certainly. That's costly. That's extremely costly. We take just 3 hours out of the day paying that, and that's about our substitute rate. So that's costly for us. We hope that changes sooner rather than later because we know that hurts the bottom line for everyone in our district. We talked about the fiscal cliff. State financial language is never guaranteed, and then the other gut check for us is Senate Bill 190. No guess on what that's going to cost the district in revenue. So no opinion on that, just we don't know what that's going to cost the district. That will not hit us in this fiscal, it will hit us in 2 years fiscal. That's why I think it's important to be very, very conservative in some of our amounts right now. What's not in here is knowing we're at that 1.3, we're also nearing the end of a bond. When I say nearing the end, it's time to start planning to see if the board and us, during CSIP especially, want to go out for another bond, which it's not a joke, it's not funny, it's very serious, but sometimes when you're backed up against a wall, you feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta make some humor out of this. When I talked to the Director of Facilities, Scott Bennett, we could easily spend $100 million, easily, to make things better. No, not just, you know, we're not providing deli bars in every classroom or anything like that, but just to make things better, right? So we're certainly not looking at that number. I would never throw out a number like that. That's a far-fetched number. But I think it's going to be time for us to start considering that in April of 2025, and certainly would give you more information on that, but at least the conversation needs to start happening for that. To give you some numbers on this, our legal debt, what the state allows us to have, is based on our assessed valuation, is $215 million in debt. Right now, we have approximately $68 million in debt. I don't want to come close to the 215, okay? Don't want to come close to that. That's for a team to decide through a process that we've held for a decade plus. But that's where we sit right now. If we did nothing, if we just let that rate decrease and did nothing and just relied on our about $3 million a year in capital money for a number of things, capital's not just used for buildings, that debt would be paid off in 2041. It seems so far away, but it's not. It really is not. So, sorry, Donna. Apologies.
Well, I might still be here.
And then we have not had a tax rate. We've not went to the community for a tax rate increase since, I believe, 2013. I think that's when it was. I know that's when it was. A lot of school districts will do it every 5 years. We've tended to not do that. We've tried to tighten up the best we can, and certainly I don't believe the last several years have been a good time to ever go out to the public and ask for anything, to be quite honest with you. But we're we're getting close to that point if we want to stay market competitive with our salaries especially. The last 2 years we've had major increases back in our employee staff for health insurance. Not looking like that this year, I'm hopeful. But so our employees have absorbed some of that the last 2 years. So that's a consideration. For every cent gives us approximately $150,000 in additional revenue based on this last year's tax rate, local tax dollars coming in. That does not take into consideration all revenue that's a part of the tax rate. That's just what we would generate locally from our community. There's all kinds of other things attached to that, but it's not significant money, so it's not worthy of us to add to that. So that's where we sit with this preliminary budget. Any questions?
That really was a lot of information that I understood.
Sorry. I knew I was talking long and probably way too much. My apologies.
No.
No, there were some things in like the later charts and stuff that you explained really clearly through the other pieces, so.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I move to approve the annual budget as presented.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, our budget is adopted. Item 8.03, this is the breakfast and lunch meal prices for 24-25. Are there any discussion on that? Do I have a motion to approve the increase of 10 cents for breakfast, 10 cents for lunch increase for 24-25?
Approve the increase in meal prices for 10 cents at breakfast and lunch for 2024, 2025.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. We're back to Jeremy. Catch your breath.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So what you're going to see in this district financial report, there are several, there's one thing that's going to be different, which is some budget adjustments. And those budget adjustments is just as we're finalizing the June, as we're attempting to finalize this fiscal year 24, school year 24, we're wanting to make, we have to make some adjustments. Those adjustments that you're going to see is like adult ed, what was their tuition coming in for this previous year, and what were their expenditures, which is very difficult to predict. They've done a very nice job. We're sitting with a fund balance in there of, well, you'd see it on the report, it's like 400 and some odd thousand right now, which is great because at times we need that money to offset all of the money that's going out before that tuition comes in. So we like to sit with that fund balance pretty healthy there. Other ones are going to be the curriculum pieces that were approved. Like I said, that's one that was very expensive because everything is getting more and more expensive. So that was a costly expense. Curriculum is always the costly expense. That's not a curriculum knock or anything like that. That's just, it costs a lot of money to get the resources in our children's hands. And so I know Earl could speak more deeply about that, but that's accurate, I think. Debt service, because of that assessed valuation, when we originally approved, we went off an assessed valuation and a tax rate. So those are just pennies on the dollar, essentially, that have changed there. And then some of the other items are very, very similar. Outside of that, if you would just look at our district finances, which, David, that's on the last one, the May 2024 board report. If we go down to the month end, May 2024, you see the Fund 1, Fund 2, that's the unrestricted. Fund 2 always gets spent well before Fund 1. We have to spend that out. That's all of our certified staff salaries. So this is normal to see that in a negative at this point in time. Because then we just start operating off that Fund 1 primarily, unless our Director of Business and Accounting decides, I want to transfer some money from Fund 1 to Fund 2. I don't see that happening, but you never know, she might. So we're sitting at 38 million, but remember that includes all of the accounts that you would see, and the food service, the student activities, the adult education, and the self-insurance, which the self-insurance is sitting pretty healthy right now. We did do an adjustment last year of several $1 million to make that sit healthy, to be honest with you, because we were nearing in the negatives based on 2 years of trends there. So there's potential for us to, if we talk to an auditor, to move that money back out, since it is sitting a little bit better than what we previously had to free up off of that. So there's also been discussion for us to restrict that self-insurance money moving forward, but I certainly wouldn't do that without communication to the board of what we think it would cost to pay out to like a medical provider, a UMR, if we decided to switch. So just to cover that expense and roll no more into it. So we've had conversations, but again, nothing in too much detail. The one thing I want to be cautious on, and this is why I wanted our revenue to be very cautious, is our food service account. Because of the pandemic, the federal government also dumped money into our food service account, and we're sitting at 2.1 million. We're going to be using about 1.3 million of that on the Hardin kitchen, and we're going to use an additional amount of that for some of the Lincoln expenditures for their kitchen. So we've had to have state approval to do that, but that's going to reduce our fund balance by that amount. And to give you an idea, it's about 1% is about 930,000 approximately. So That will take a hit on our unrestricted right off the bat, once we exhaust that money. That money should be exhausted by December of 2025 if construction goes as planned. So we will start seeing, we could see an impact on that, especially if that revenue is a worst-case scenario revenue, which is what I presented to you previously. But with all of that being said, the $38 million is a safe landing spot at the end of May, and it was better than where we landed last year at this time by quite a bit. There are a few reasons for that, though. Federal money came in quite a bit later, like September, October, so that wasn't reflected in the unrestricted fund balance of the previous year. So that's a consideration for us, and that's something that we're consistently watching just to make sure that our numbers are correct, because ESSER money was a blessing and a curse. I think it was a curse for financial officers, meaning it was very, very difficult to track and especially in our fiscal year of July 1 to June 30th, which is different than the federal fiscal, and it's different than the calendar fiscal that a lot of places operate off of, right? So, so that made it, and if you, and this is kind of getting off track a little bit, but I think it's worthy of saying, we've had a tremendous amount of turnover in the financial officers in the school district industry just this past year and the previous year before that. This has been some very challenging time for finance officers. And I'm not saying that on my behalf. That goes to our Director of Business and Accounting and the previous person before that. So just to try to give context to that. So all in all, we're doing well at the end of May. We will be able to provide you with a preliminary unrestricted fund balance in the July board meeting, which we still think will be above 20%.
Is that money you're talking about from the food service fund and the construction projects? Was that in the 24-25 budget, though, already for the numbers?
Well, it is, but it doesn't impact, it's not showing an impact on expenditures or revenue at all. There's a line item in there that just says a transfer. So what we'll do is we'll transfer that food service money into our general fund, and then we'll, into our construction fund, and then we'll pay that out. Okay. And I've asked our architectural crew that control our invoices through all of the contractor and the subcontractors to make sure they separate that out so we can spend it well.
Gotcha. So that's the food service transfer out then?
That is, yeah.
What's the, sorry, now because I'm looking at it, I can't
Yeah.
help it. What's the other purchase services then for the food service funds?
Let me look at that. Actually, I have it here.
It's another big one.
I know. And I just talked about this earlier. And now I've forgotten, to be honest with you.
It's okay. It's a general curiosity question. I don't think it affects anything. For
Yeah.
it. So we can look it up, but we don't need to wait for it. Probably.
Okay, all right.
It's not-
I have an answer. It's just,
yeah, I know
I
you
got to
do.
look at it on
It's not
paper.
going to change anything for where the stuff is presented, but I was just curious.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the financial report as presented?
I move to approve the budget adjustments and financial report as presented.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes. Item 10.01, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second? I second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all for staying this evening.